Hello, and welcome to another episode of My Faith is Bigger Than My Fears podcast. I am your host, Tamala Ingram, and thank you again for tuning in to another episode on a Monday. I hope that you all have had a great weekend. This month has been a little rough for me and my family. We have once again suffered another loss. Last episode I talked about my son's best friend had gotten to a tragic accident and we lost him, and now we have another loss in our family. So I'm like, Lord, what is going on? But in the midst of it all, I just want to tell God thank you. And also I want to say thank you to Nexum's Impact Center, who has allowed me to come in today to record this podcast episode. So I want to just shout them out. You can also visit them. They actually offer this creative studio. They offer also other areas that you can rent out as well. And you can actually go on the website and take a tour there to look at the place if you are interested in renting out rooms or renting out this creative space. It's amazing in here. So with that being said, today's episode is entitled, What Are You Waiting For? What are you waiting for? My good friend Danielle Harney said this: there is no reward without the risk. So what are you waiting for? All right. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode, and let's get into this episode. What are you waiting for? How many of us aren't taking the risk because of fear? What if the reward was something great because we were willing to take the risk? I'm reminded of a time when my son, before his first football game, his senior year, the last year of football at high school, I asked him, "Are you ready?" Chandler says, "Yes," every time. I said, "Are you nervous?" He said, "No, Mom, because if I'm nervous, that means I'm not ready." My son would go out every Friday night and risk himself because he wanted to play a game that he loved. But it was a risk that he could have got hurt, a risk that he could have got, anything could have happened, but yet he was willing to take the risk. Now let's talk about taking a risk for God. How many times has God told you to go up to a complete stranger and pray for them? How many times have you had a word concerning someone else that God has told you to share with that person? How many of you have walked down the aisle and given your life to Jesus Christ? These are all risks. Not to say that there won't be any hesitation or fears from us, but I notice that even with taking risk, I'm still being obedient to what God is telling me to do. The greatest reward out of all these risks is giving our lives to Jesus Christ, period. So what are you waiting for? The next time you hear God's word or instructions, do them. God calls us to be bold for him. That is the greatest reward when we take a risk, especially when we don't know the outcome. And here are some examples. Noah, who the Lord told, build an ark because rain is coming. Mind you, Noah has never seen rain before. He's never even seen an ark before. But yet Noah took the risk because he trusted God and what God had told him to do. He built the ark, and here comes the rain and the flood. This is in Genesis chapter 6, 9 through 22. Now, what if Noah did not be obedient to God and didn't build the ark? Noah would have been in the flood and destroyed like everybody else on the earth. But God trusted Noah to follow through and take the risk. We have another example. The three Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who Nebuchadnezzar, the king at that time, had built a golden image. And he was told that everybody, once they hear the sounds, the flutes, the harps, all these sounds going off, they have to bow to this gold image. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said they are not bowing to this gold image because they serve the only true living God. And when that happened, Nebuchadnezzar saw that they were still standing. Let's talk about that. Sometimes taking a risk will have you stand out. They stood out because they knew that God was going to come through for them. And they even said, even if God does not come through for us, we still won't bow. That was taking a risk. Not only were they thrown in a fiery furnace, but when they got in there, the Lord was with them. And when they received and got out of the fiery furnace, they had no evidence that they were even in a furnace. Their clothes weren't burned. Their hair didn't smell like smoke. And so Nebuchadnezzar believed at that time that their God was the only true living God. They took a risk. They could have lost their lives, but God showed up. That's one thing. They took a risk. And that is in Daniel chapter 3, verses 8 through 30, if you want to read that in the New King James Version. Sometimes God will use others to put you in a situation that is meant for you, but you were not willing to take the risk, so someone had to push you into that. My son at one time didn't want to play quarterback. He would say it's too hard. But at some point in his life, we all have to be willing to take a risk to see what the outcome will be. What if this outcome is life-changing risk? What if this can take you far in life? Now my son has been playing quarterback for 7 years because he took the risk. Sometimes the risk, it can be fearful, and that's okay. But we think about what God has told us to do. God tells us that we can trust him, that we can depend on him. The risk is also having faith in God. God tells us to go left, and I'm like, Lord, I want to go right though, because it's more comfortable over there. Or I'm content where I'm at, and I don't want to step out of my comfort zone. God said, what I need you to do, I need you to take the risk, take the leap of faith, because you never know what's on the other side of that. The unknowing, look at Noah, the Hebrew boys, the unknowing is the faith part. But God is always with us no matter what we do. As long as it's in his will and he's telling us to do it, sometimes we got to take those risks, which means we stepping out on faith and we trust in God's plan. So I want to encourage someone today. What are you waiting for? Let's just ask that question. What are you waiting for? Take the risk. Have faith in God, knowing that whatever happens, you still took the risk and not questioning your decision. We shouldn't go through life with shoulda, coulda, wouldas. God called us to live for him, to create, and to have faith and trust in him. God will guide us. Remember that. We have to listen to his voice though. And we also need to know that taking a risk is what we are supposed to do. That's the faith part. So please take the risk. Stop waiting. Tomorrow is not promised. Ask yourself, why are you not taking the risk? Don't be fearful, and don't let fear paralyze you. God has already equipped you, and he knows what he's put in you, and you can do it. Whatever that is, whatever that risk God is telling you to do, just trust him and do it. He knows you're capable to do it and doing it. That's why he gave it to you in the first place. So once again, what are you waiting for? I pray that you take the risk. As my friend Danielle said, there is no reward without the risk. I am your host, Tamala Ingram. Thank you again for tuning in to My Faith is Bigger Than My Fears podcast, where we encourage, we motivate, we put our faith and trust in God, and we conquer our fears one episode at a time. Again, I want to say thank you again for Nexum's Impact .org for allowing me to come back in again to into this creative space. I also want to ask everyone to continue to pray for Mason Alexander's family. We have a lot of people hurting in our community, and we need all the prayers. They need all the prayers. And so until next time, until next Monday, when we have every episode comes out, you can check me out on all social media platforms. And again, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, see you on Monday.